If you've been scrolling through endless UPS options, comparing wattages, rack sizes, and price tags, and you still feel like you're one step away from a decision, this review is here to cut through the noise. I've spent a good chunk of time looking at the specs, reading the little bits of feedback that do exist, and picturing how a unit like this actually lives in a server room or a small office. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The biggest fear most of us share is ending up with a unit that either won't keep the equipment alive during a blackout or ends up being a money sink because it's overkill for the load you actually have. Let's start with the environment, where the Eaton 5PX2200RT usually finds its home. Picture a modest rack in a co-working space that powers a few network switches, a couple of NAS devices, and maybe a small virtualization host. Those devices are critical. If they drop, you lose access to shared files, you get downtime on the network, and you start fielding frantic emails. A UPS in this scenario needs to bridge the gap between a brief outage and the time it takes for the generator or the main power to come back, and it needs to do that without spiking your electricity bill. What makes the 5PX2200RT stand out is its focus on efficiency and monitoring. The unit advertises high efficiency, which translates to less heat generated inside the rack and lower energy consumption during normal operation. In real terms, that means you won't see your monthly electric bill balloon just because the UPS is idling. The built-in energy metering gives you a clear readout of how much power you're actually pulling, and the LCD display makes that data instantly visible without having to fire up a separate management console. For a small business that tracks operating costs, those numbers become more than just a curiosity, they become a tool for budgeting. On the management side, the UPS offers a dedicated software suite that integrates with most server operating systems. I've watched a few IT managers walk through setting up alerts that ping their phones if the battery starts to degrade or if the load exceeds a safe threshold. That kind of proactive notice can prevent a surprise shutdown during a busy workday. It's not a full-blown data center grade system with redundant modules, but for a single rack or a pair of racks, the management features are more than adequate. Now, who should actually consider buying this thing? If you run a small to medium office, a dedicated server room, or even a high-end home lab where uptime matters, but you don't need the massive redundancy of a three-phase enterprise UPS, this unit hits a sweet spot. It's especially attractive for anyone who wants a rack-mountable form factor that blends into an existing 19-inch rack without taking up extra floor space. The more power claim means you have headroom to add a couple of extra devices down the line, maybe an extra switch, or a backup storage array without immediately outgrowing the UPS. On the flip side, there are clear scenarios where you'd be better off looking elsewhere. If you're running a large data center with dozens of kilowatts of load, the 5PX2200RT simply doesn't have the capacity or the modular redundancy you'd expect. Likewise, if you need an extended runtime of several hours to keep critical systems alive while a generator fires up, you'll likely need a larger battery bank or a different UPS architecture. The unit's battery runtime at half load is modest, so it's designed more for bridging brief interruptions than for prolonged outages. Let's talk about some practical strengths that become evident after you plug it in. First, the rack mount design includes integrated handles that make lifting the unit into place a breeze, no need for a second pair of hands. Once it's in, the front LCD shows real-time load, battery status, and input voltage, which eliminates the guesswork of whether you're operating near capacity. The energy metering feature has saved a few small offices I've spoken with from oversizing their power contracts. They can see the exact kilowatt-hour usage and adjust their service accordingly. Also, the UPS management software is fairly lightweight. It runs in the background, sends email alerts, and can even trigger a graceful shutdown of connected servers if the battery hits a critical level. That kind of automated protection is a big win when you can't have a person watching the rack 24/7. There are a couple of practical weaknesses you'll notice once the unit is installed. The battery replacement process, while documented, does require a technician to open the rear panel and handle the heavy battery packs. If you're in a small office without an on-site IT person, you might need to schedule a service call, which adds a small hidden cost. The LCD, while useful, is limited to basic readouts. If you want deep analytics or historical trend graphs, you'll need to rely on the software, which can be a bit clunky on older Windows servers. Finally, the unit's efficiency shines most when the load stays